Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today is, whoops, I didn't write the date down. What is, no, what is it?
It's March 19th.
Oh, March 19th. Thank you.
Because yesterday was my dad's birthday.
Oh, March 19th, 2025. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Please subscribe. Want to thank Scott Guild for being here again for part 2. We did part 1 December 4th of last year. Scott, where in the heck are you calling in from?
I am in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I have to be honest, December 4th, now we're in getting to the end of March. I feel like I've lived a couple years since December, just with all the political changes and everything happened. And much like last time, if it's okay, I have a few questions for you. We don't have to start with my questions for you, but I do have some prepared because I find you such a fascinating mind.
Whatever you want, Scott. If you want to
start.
Is
that okay?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, okay. So I'm just really into, because you are so steeped in McLuhan and you are so steeped in media theory. I am, and I feel like so many of the voices I listen to, and I probably take in too much all the time of news and all that, but media theory really does seem the name of the game in many ways of interpreting this moment and trying to understand what's going on and the political changes in our country and why we're seeing all this strange rises of authoritarianism and such, people ignoring the climate crisis and all this stuff. So I was curious, what is your take on this moment that we're in American history as it connects to media and the way media is being connected? Yeah. And I'm sure you're talking to people all the time too, so I'm sure you're getting a lot of interesting takes on this as well. So I'd be so curious to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big question, and
it is.
It could go on forever. But basically, the funny thing about McLuhan is he's not a media theorist per se, but he's called a media theorist in Wikipedia. So he would probably say leave it, because he comes from academia, and in academia, you usually are kind of theory oriented. You're more concept oriented. He was about percept and teasing people to believe that his percepts were concepts. So he was just asking questions. He was basically saying, in order to understand me, you have to know all Joyce and all the symbolist poets who, they spawned your man, Dylan. The symbol spawned Dylan. Mallarmé, it doesn't matter what you say, it's how it makes you feel. So that's a lot of what's going on. Is we have this media literacy, I think, and he called it media ecology, and Neil Postman amusing ourselves to death. It's like we have to be aware of how we receive information. So we do that through spoken word, printed word, and now it's the many ways. And me being a boomer, we were looking at the news and watching Walter Cronkite and maybe a couple other guys, couple other people. Now it's massive. So, I'm going to inject my own thing, not what McLuhan would say, is pay attention and talk to other people. My friend said the revolution is two people talking. There are sources that I recommend, Pacifica, Ralph Nader, AOC, Bernie, and there's a lot of others, and it's what's going on, and can we do anything about it, and can we expose how they're revealing information to us? People go, oh my God, they're brainwashed. The Fox News is brainwashing people. I go well, then that should enable people to grow and expand their critical thinking skills. Don't say people are just brainwashed and the whole country's filled with brainwashed idiots, because they're thinking human beings, and we want to give people credit where credit's due. I know there's documentaries. I lost my dad to Fox News, and I know it's true. People, I mean, my friend said something yesterday, like saying, well, Trump did do something good. I was like, don't even say that. Don't even say he did something good, but again, he's a human being. So sorry to go on a tangent, but
I wanted it.
I appreciate what you are, Scott, is, what we are is more conversational. People don't like, some people don't like that my whole thing is scripted. And then I ask you the question, I go, well, a lot of people say that, Scott. Let's go to the next question. And so you're like, let me just start out with asking you a question. So yeah, it's really difficult because my discussion group, which I would highly recommend you join, every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, we go for 40 minutes because Zoom gives you 40 minutes free. so it's so cool to talk with 6-8 people.
Yeah.
Your question, and at the 39-minute point, you just get cut off mid-sentence, like, oh. And so
if you're meeting 3 days a week, you probably
there
such a rolling level of conversation there and going into more and more detail.
Yeah, we have the one guy. I mean, the group is so diverse, and I've basically done the group for 30 years. And it was pre-COVID, it was in person, but it was once a month. But then, when Zoom took over, we just do it daily. So, it's like, oh my God, I don't want to talk about that politics every day. And so, we go off and we go wherever we want. I'll just say, hey, what do you want to talk about today? And most people are scared shitless right now.
Yeah.
They are shivering in their booty. And it's like our job is to stay strong and talk about it and come up with not just dialogue and conversations, but strategies and action. And it's hard. Because I'm not going to go on the street and get hit with rubber bullets or, whatever.
No,
I did that. I did it 50 years ago, peace activism, and I'm proud of it, but I'm too old to be hit by a rubber bullet. But,
your rubber bullet days are done.
Yeah, that whatever they do. Yeah, my rubber bullet, but whatever they do, I mean, I'm a little scared.
Time for my generation to be shot by rubber bullets. Yeah. Passing the torch. Like,
Passing the torch.
Rubber bullets can kill you if they hit you wrong. It's rubber bullets is such a gentle, euphemistic thing for what's actually happened, which is you're getting shot by a gun.
Yeah, but it's also, when I joined Black Lives Matter just a few years ago, walking down our main street here, the cops stopped traffic for us, and it was all white yuppies, and I was like, it made me cry. I mean, it really touched me deeply, and the leader was so passionate on the chants, but it was just like, okay, I'm happy for it. And then now they tear the Black Lives Matter sign down in DC, and it's like, well, what are you going to do about that? So I mean, it's a hard one, Scott. Your question is really important to keep asking.
And it's not, I appreciate everything you're saying, and it's actually very just like inspiring and clarifying everything you're saying. But I think it's really interesting and probably pretty important too to think about these things from a kind of like anthropological level of like what is going on with the species in this kind of moment. So like one of the most persuasive cases I heard about what's going on with media right now is just the fact that like social media companies came to understand 10, 15 years ago that you just get a lot more mileage and a lot more engagement out of things that are driving trends that are driving like fear and hatred and sort of like the negative emotions, whether on the right or left. Right. So, those companies and the technology being specifically geared towards algorithmically like enhancing posts that are connected to rage and connected to those kind of, I would call like baser emotions that lead us into negative action and polarizing action. So it's interesting, I think, technologically, when you think about it in terms of, what is the medium of social media, or what is the medium of our current technologies doing, where when you're talking about like, okay, in the Cronkite days, the medium was there. I mean, to say that any medium is totally truthful and not biased in some ways, I mean, that's a pipe dream, right? But the medium was not there specifically to hypercharge certain divisive, polarizing emotions to monetize the audience more. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that's a little debatable, Scott. Let me just.
You would debate that? You would debate that?
No, just a little. I mean,
I'm interested. Yeah.
This is when Marshall was teaching in St. Louis, wrote his first book. the Mechanical Bride, and in the first
What a
opening,
great title! Oh, the
yeah,
Mechanical Bride.
it's from Duchamp, and
Yeah.
it's
Oh, okay.
yeah, but
I said, "Oh yeah, okay," as if I understood the reference you were making. I was just that, but then I actually don't know who you referred to.
yeah,
I went, "Oh yeah, of course, Duchamp, who I've read. I've never, you know."
yeah, but Duchamp was
So
just
just
saying,
we're all such liars.
we're married to our cars. So
Oh yeah, in our
we're
phone.
married. That's Duchamp saying, yeah, we're married to our phone. But what you said was, when humans invented spoken word and printed word, they were selling you stuff with they're looky, what did you call it? If it bleeds, it leads. As soon as they
Yes,
started, they
yes.
started right off the bat. So it's like, oh
And
no,
cable
now
news charges
no,
that. You can
it's
see
so
social media.
worse. Yeah, but
Yeah.
Marshall said a good, probably in that book or one of those early books, that
Right.
the bad news is what the newspapers want to sell, but they put in the good news, which is the advertising. So people are like, no,
Yes.
advertising isn't good news. It's like, no, this is how they sell you. Cronkite's
They're selling visions of the good
yeah,
life or something.
yeah, they're selling all kinds of stuff, but they're also saying this is good investigative journalism and we believe it. Then this is just a theory that somebody wrote. When Jon Stewart came in, they said, dude, we're going to give you a lot of money. You make fun of the news and we're going to give you a lot of money. So then it went from being news with this much budget to news with a whole lot more budget. So as soon as Jon Stewart became very successful, then Tucker Carlson said, well, we can have a lot of money too and do the same thing. So what's the difference? You're selling, and that's liberal bias, blah, blah, blah. It's like whatever you're going to convince, back to Mallerman Similis, whatever you're going to get a feeling, then you're selling the feeling. You're not selling what it's saying exactly.
You are right. Right.
Dylan doesn't really want you to pay attention to his words because he rips them off just out of a Japanese book he found in a tour once. He knows he's just picking it up wherever he is. And some of his lyrics, like Ginsberg said, every fourth song is pretty good by Dylan.
This is a good tactic that I'm having a kid soon, and my wife, everyone should mention Dylan to me when they want to distract me from my topic, because I just want to. So I'm going to give you one thing about Dylan, but then I want to get back to McLuhan just for one second. But do you know Dylan's Nobel Prize speech that he gave?
I don't know it well, but go ahead.
They found he actually took things from Spark Notes. So he talked about
Odyssey. That's perfect.
It is perfect.
So
yeah, he talked about Moby Dick, and some of the lines are just ripped out of Sparks Notes. He needed.
I love that.
I was like, that is so cool.
Well, what's wrong with that?
Nobel Prize speech with Spark Notes things only. Anyway,
that is super.
You got to take off your hat sometimes. I don't know how I feel about it. Good, bad.
No, I love it because our English professor, big time in New York, he hates when I bring up. We call them Cliff Notes, but that's the funniest
thing. Same thing. Maybe it was Cliff Notes actually. Yeah.
The Dylan show I listen to every Sunday for 2 hours. Drives my wife nuts. I got to use headphones. She's so Lisa Finney, Dylan Hours. Look it up. It's amazing. When Dylan won Nobel Prize,
your wife has such a beautiful voice. Maybe Dylan.
Did you hear her do? She did the Dylan song too. She appreciates them. But anyways, Lisa Finney, Dylan Hours on KCSN, every Sunday.
Okay, I should listen to that. Yeah,
for 2 hours. When Dylan won the Nobel Prize, she played a tape of him 40 years ago saying, I ain't going to win no Nobel Prize. Is it Nobel or Noble? I'm a rock and roll singer. He literally said that 40 years.
Yeah.
And I wanted to tell you another thing. Michael McClure, one of the great post-beat kind of into hippie era beat poets. I mean, he's really good. Michael McClure. He took McLuhan to his first rock concert, and it was Bob Dylan.
What I like now, and this changed in my lifetime, is in the kind of literary milieu I'm in at the moment. It's like liking Dylan now, there's really actually nothing cool about it anymore. It's like, it's like I'm coming in with some like weird boomer stuff for people. So It becomes more, it's not trendy. When I was young and I knew about Dylan, I could talk to people, go, oh, interesting, you know.
Yeah. No, now it's like
I was amazed they made a complete unknown, but I think there's still like, you know, there's still an audience,
it's like
huge audience for him, obviously.
Didn't Timmy do a great Zimmy? It's more about Timmy than Zimmy.
Timmy do a great oh geez. Anyway, I'm gonna see him. He's coming to town with Willie Nelson. I can't wait, you know.
Oh yeah, great.
Outlaw Music Festival.
Yeah, that's perfect. But anyways,
they should give us ad money. I mean, this is like a big ad we're doing right now.
Well,
listen to Dylan, all your problems will be solved. You'll be fixed. You'll be whole.
He's what we should all be, is keep Zappa, don't stop and keep going. He's a troubadour. He's just, people go, he sounds like a duck, he sounds like Tom Waits, he sounds like Leonard Cohen, he can't sing. It's like, then why'd you pay $100 for the ticket? If no one pays any money, then he won't keep touring. He's touring because he likes to tour. So if you're going to go see him, then have fun. You don't have to come. Why did I do that? So, you know.
Well, I'm in the weird ultra minority of people who thinks he made all his best albums after the year 2000. I love his pre-2000 stuff, but like that's where my deepest love is for his work. So yeah. So for me going to see him, it's like, you know, but I'm weird. I loved when he was doing the Frank Sinatra stuff and he'd come out and croon and like he wasn't playing piano or guitar. He was just up there. So he didn't do it for very long because, I mean, the whole audience would turn and start talking to each other when he did that and wait for like a Rolling Stone. No one wanted to, you know, no one wanted him to hear him going about like the night we called it a day or whatever, you know. But I was like, yeah, you know, who knows why? But nothing wrong with me. Yeah.
But it
was weird. He was following his muse. And I like when he goes anyway, we gotta circle. Okay, so I have
but you don't. You have another question, I think. But here's
I have a question for you.
Basically, Bob Dylan is similar. You turn to the artist, and they're broadcasting and detecting these things, and it's coming up on my questions to you. I'm going to ask that question, but he did that. He said that literally in some interview. I'm just a radio and this stuff's just coming through me and broadcasting. So then it's up to us to interpret what I saw this right-wing news item. Now I saw a left-wing news item. Then I found a news source that I feel is more in the middle. And now I process it. Right. What am I going to do with that information? You know? That's what I think media, when you ask media theory, it's more media literacy, how to read it.
Right.
And how is it shaping our behavior? That's McLuhan's main thing is how is TikTok shaping our behavior? How did television and Walter Cronkite shape my behavior? You know?
And that really connects to the kind of anthropologist I had heard talking about this too, where it's like, yeah, the current media is shaping our behavior in certain ways by the algorithms pushing us into sort of like emotional spaces by the content they're prioritizing. Okay, so my question for you is, you have the tetrad with McLuhan, right? So
yes,
what does the medium enhance? So I'm thinking about social media now. I'm thinking about our current technologies. Our current communication technologies that are so ascendant. You know, so you can think. I don't think it's hard to think about. Like, what does it make obsolete? I think that's easy to answer. What does it retrieve? Then a bit obsolete earlier. I mean, I think it retrieves more of the common voice. But what does the medium flip into when pushed to extremes? That's my question. I don't think we've reached, like, you know, when we talk about, okay, you know, you have, for instance, you have like acoustic, like radio becomes audiovisual TV, right? Or, you know, something like that. Or like, you know, television becomes internet and social media, or, you know, you have the medium gets pushed to the extreme and it changes. What do you think social media becomes? Or our online communication that we have right now, what does that become when pushed to the extreme? Because I don't think we're there yet with it. I think it's so new, and we're just. So if you have a thought about that, I'd be super fascinated. And then that's my last question.
Scott, it's a great question, and let me clarify, because I've done tetrads for many years, and a lot of the McLuhan people, they're not so keen on tetrads. Some of them are.
They're sick of the tetrad.
But No, my favorite was one of my main comrades said the other day, make them say 4 holy tetrads for saying that. Like it was a no, here's what the
With a
tetrad,
little rosary with
yeah,
the
like,
with the tetrads.
but it is, let me explain simply the
Yeah,
bottom line on the tetrad, and then we'll go into social media tetrad.
yeah.
It is not on social media that I'm doing this tetrad. It is on the environment that social media has created. So
Uh,
it's the figure ground. So when we
that's
go,
interesting.
well,
That's
what
very
is a
interesting.
car? What does a car enhance? Oh, private mobility. What does a car render obsolete? Horse and buggy. What does it retrieve? The knight in shining armor. What does a car become when pressed to an extreme? What does it reverse into? A traffic jam, a home. It's endless
Right.
what you can say in response to the 4 questions. There's no right or wrong answers, but most people think they're doing it on the object, on the thing itself.
Interesting.
No, he
Interesting.
doesn't want you. It's page 254 of Understanding Me, where
Hmm.
Marshall's daughter transcribed 10 of his talks, and he explains what the medium is, the
Hmm.
message is, what is basically what the tetrad structure is. It's not on the object,
That's so interesting. Okay.
it is on the environment, but it's also this, Scott, it's on, not on the intention why the invention was made.
Hmm.
Henry
Hmm.
Ford let's just say kind of invented the car, and it's sort of like so that you could get outside of the city and enjoy the countryside easier.
Right.
That
Right.
could have been his intention. It could have been, I
Right.
want to make money, but
Right.
it's not on the intention
Right.
of that why the car was made.
Hmm.
It,
Hmm.
what we're doing the tetrad on is, what is the deeper unintended consequences,
Right.
psychic, hidden
Right.
psychic effects. That's what but you can still do tetrads on the obvious. And when you do, Rob Dew, my comrade I just brought up, he's done them with students for years, and
Yeah.
they will say the obvious. What does TikTok enhance? Shorter attention span. Well,
Right.
that's what haiku poetry did. Oh, well, now it's bad. TikTok's bad, but haiku poetry's good. Don't make a value judgment. Just survey what these
The psychic
effects are.
effects. Yeah. It's
So, so,
interesting.
so
So
then you
yeah.
you want to do it. It's too broad. You want to do it specifically on social media. Is that what you want to do the tetrad
Well,
on?
I almost am thinking about more like the media. What the clarification you make is great because there is social media. There's this thing that exists, but what we're really thinking about and care about is the environment that surrounds it, that's created through the kind of collective psychic effect of the social media
That's it.
on it, right? Yeah. So
But if
that I'm
you
wondering,
say
but then maybe
social
that
media,
has been, so maybe that's pushed to an extreme. Trump gets elected. Like maybe that's or maybe the question is more interesting and also easier to answer that way than to say what's the technology that comes next or what does the
well,
technology morph into, because that's kind of what I was asking is like,
okay, so
yeah,
but
but
it's
I don't know if that's answerable,
no, it is. It's not. It's I can guess or hunch at it. That's what I'm good at. But I'm not good at it. I'm going to do a hunch or a
yeah,
guess.
well, that's what I was interested to hear
I
your
could
point.
be completely wrong, but it is to flush out the tetrad and just isolate one question. I rather do it first by saying, when Marshall said the word media, he was meaning spoken word, printed word, television, telephone, computers. He was
Mhm,
he
mhm.
was saying all these technologies, the toothpick, the
Right,
bulldozer. That's
right,
media, is technology. So then the word media morphed into, radio, TV, and newspapers.
right,
So
right,
it's
right,
a then the word social media, if you look it up in Wikipedia, it says the telegraph is the start of social media. So social
right,
media is communication with electricity.
right.
Well, that's a huge thing in McLuhan, distinguishing. But let me just do social media for a second. Like, what do you call that? Woo, woo, woo. Fast, What does social media enhance?
Mhm.
Community, or it enhances community. It's like we're sharing, and that's not a very deep answer, but it's basically, what does social media enhance? But um discarnate communication. We're without bodies.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he.
Mm-hmm.
So when we
Mm-hmm.
did, Marshall made a point. When you're on the telephone, that's electricity. You're without a body. You're not. You don't have your body. Me and you are without bodies in essence, but we're captivated by our head and our verbal output and our um, gestures, and toast to drinking water. You take a slug every once in a while. That's it. Look at that. But see,
Not
what is
water, it's Arizona iced tea.
there? You go. I mean, some beverage. So,
I'm gonna
so
try to do as many
what is
ads as possible during the show. I think now when I come on here, I'm gonna try to sell things.
Yeah. Well, dude, I mean that you can make
Product
a living.
placement.
I mean, people make a living. There's nothing wrong.
I'm
And
not going to, but
we're subversive, and so, but here's the thing: social media enhances, let's say, discarnate
I love your point about the disembodiment of it. In that we're actually having relationships with sort of like electronic simulacrums of each other at this point. Yeah.
Okay, now what does social media render obsolete? Again, it's sort of too obvious. I'm not going deep enough.
And that's why I felt the earlier parts of the chat were very obvious. It was that last question that fascinated me.
I'm going to get there.
Yeah.
But it helps me get there.
Sure.
It's obvious. Or I mean, it's not obvious. It's if Scott came to Venice or I came to your hometown, we wouldn't have to do this in a social media electric environment. If me and you were talking, I would have a tape player taping us, or you would, and there's the electricity still involved. But our eyes would be on the room,
right?
And we would be smelling the room, and our senses, it wouldn't be isolated with visual and auditory so much, sense ratio. Then what does it retrieve? What does social media retrieve? This is the greatest step of the tetrad, because every tetrad's third answer, what does it retrieve, is the watering hole or the fire pit where the people would gather. What did TV do? Gather people in the room to look at flickering lights. So it's the gathering point. Every medium gathers people into some sort of, water hole discussion. It's called, you will love this word, Scott, look it up. Phatic communication.
Phatic,
Phatic. Look up phatic in etymology. Pha. Emphatic, it comes from emphatic, but phatic communication is what it is. It's casual conversation. Hey, Scott, what's going on? Oh, hi. Oh, everything okay? Yeah, cool, man. You don't go, my dad died yesterday. My life's a mess. You go along with the discussion. But I mean, it doesn't mean you can't reveal what's really going on.
Right.
You say to your students, everything okay? Yeah, let's go on. Okay, we're going to start our class now. Okay, so what does social media flip into when pressed to an extreme? A bunch of geezers like me and even younger people like you going, all kids do are look at their cell phones where they don't have any. It flips into another invention has ruined.
I didn't do that today. Even if I was secretly feeling it, I didn't.
Every invention flips into older people going, comic books are ruining kids. Rock and roll ruined kids. Oh my God. And that's all they do. AI has ruined kids. Oh my God. We've ruined music with AI. Get over it. Every human invention shapes us. So, I mean, sorry to go off.
No. It's very interesting.
So the reversal is funny because there's actually, back to Rob Dew's great at this. He says there's two questions there. What does it flip into? And what does it become when pressed to an extreme? So it's sort of, I merge them together. What does a car become when pressed to an extreme? This is a good one. a car bomb. Every day, people kill other people with cars, not as an accident, but because on purpose, they can use this
Yeah.
thing that we think is like, you ask people, oh, I've got to have a car so I can go to the Save Mother Nature protest in my car. Yeah, get out. Scott, you're the best at laughing. Here's the best statistic. And again, data is, a good thing to do tetrads on. Information and data and
Oh yeah,
statistics.
yeah.
Okay. But here's the one. I read once the normal American spends a third of their work year just paying to get to work.
Oh my.
So how do you get to work for you? Do you have to drive?
My wife and I live like 20 seconds from the university where we
There
teach.
you go.
So
See?
we got very lucky that it's not in an
It's,
expensive neighborhood at all that
see?
we live in near where we
Yeah.
teach. So I mean, I will drive because I'm super lazy, but it's like
Yeah.
I'm driving half a mile, which is I think the car being pushed to an extreme as well. It's just an extreme of
But it's also
middle-aged male laziness,
you want to keep your car moving. If you left your car in the garage for 3
Yeah.
years and an emergency came up and it doesn't start, you've got to maintain it. So you might as well,
Yeah, it's just interesting to think about social media because when you're saying these things, what happens when it's flipped to the extreme? I feel like we're already in that,
we're in
in the extreme. Or I'm like, what is it even? But I when you were saying the car flipped to an extreme, the first thing that came to my mind was the deterioration of the family because now everyone can move and go.
that's
You're not located in a community anymore. You can work wherever you want. You can open up to new opportunities. It's going to make sense because you can make more money, but the family structure completely changes because people are so mobile. It was completely different before that. And then that has a million different things. So yeah, no, it's fascinating. But I think what's going to stick with me too is thinking of a toothpick as media. I think all tools, things that we engage with as human beings. I think that's how I'm calming myself down in this moment by trying to zoom out as much as possible and thinking in a more like essentialist way about like we are humans with tools, with shaping influences. If you can get back to that point, then you can sort of restore some of your awe and wonder. But I mean, hopefully that channels back into energy to try to make a political difference and care about what's happening to your own communities. And I think we're all a little, confused about the next steps.
Right, but Scott, you have great morals. You raised well. You have and you have a great sense of cooperation, and that comes out in your talk and it's important in your music. But it doesn't mean that we're trying to, in the last couple of days. Where did humans all of a sudden stop being cooperative and felt they got to kill someone? And so there's a shift. Did the tools change them? My friend will tell you as soon as they got on horses, then they could whomp the other dude easier. Then the stirrup. Marshall walks you through how the horse changed the human, the stirrup changed it, and then they started inventing this and this and this, and then they go, forget all that. We don't need knives or forks or bombs. Just put it in the water. It's called biowarfare. Put it in the air. Whatever. It's going to be endless parade of tools. And there's two little things I want to add because you brought up the word tool is, again, Marshall's saying a tool can be non-tangible. Words, it's spoken word or, philosophy. Oh, I have a philosophy. Oh, I have a religion. Like Moon Zappa wrote in her Newsweek article. It's so good. She saw graffiti. Not all cults are bad. And you're in a Dylan cult. You like Dylan. So what? That's not
I don't
bad.
know if it's good for me or not. They got me early.
No, it's not. It's
I
fine.
drank the Kool-Aid and here I
but
am,
it's fine. But it's not a bad cult. It's so it employs a lot of people. My friend, we could go off on Dylan for hours. My friend worked for Dylan, and but here's the other thing about the word tool. Winston Churchill said, we shape our buildings, then they shape us. Marshall, in his great way of rewording aphorisms, because that's what I want you to be there. I've been wanting to do this salon for years. It's called rewording aphorisms. So
Oh,
all the participants come with 3 aphorisms, and then they say it, and then you go around the room, and everybody's got to reword it on the spot.
oh boy.
Yeah, and that's asking a lot because
My
aphorism.
wife would be good at that. She can like pun in a second.
Yeah,
She's like, you know, these
yeah,
people who are just like can like
yeah.
time to pun, and then they like language just flies around in their head. It's like that Zach Galifianakis meme, you know. Oh my
And
god, yeah, yeah.
here's
That sounds
Marshall.
yeah.
Marshall took Churchill and said, "We shape our tools, then they shape us." So does the tool more shape us, or does the human change inside and all this other stuff that whatever you want to explain, what makes the human
Yeah.
operate? Does that change us? Like, because that's the big thing to be reductive. Marx said the point of the world is to change things. And Marshall said, "Good luck, Carl. You humans can't change anything. Their tools change them."
Right.
So when
Right.
we
Right.
invented
Right.
when we invented printed word, my mentor said we split our brains. It's called splitteracy. We went left brain and right brain. So
Mm.
we started to go, oh, now I can say this is a Zoom session instead of, oh, we're just talking. We can use words to define what we're doing, but you
Mhm.
can't define anything. You know, is this a Zoom session
Mhm.
or are we just in the back alley bullshitting and we just having fun? I would say this is more having fun in the natural having fun than doing
Yeah.
a stupid Gerry interview.
Don't knock what you do. It's very important. I love your
I know
spirit.
you. Okay, here's my
I'm a
first.
big fan. I'm a big fan.
Scott, I'm not going to let you follow up because you can if you want. Here's my first question.
I think you're
What?
more interesting than I am. So whenever we get into
No,
these
no,
things, I'm like,
it's
I'm with myself all the time, you know. So it's
okay, but
but
that's
I like what you do. When you're like a Socrates coming to me
yeah.
in the square, and now I have to like answer these questions and like take stock of where I am existentially at this moment in my life. So what you do is very important, and it's being recorded, which is I think an important part of it too, where it's not just you saying, "Oh, hey, what's going on with this?" Like it's going to be on YouTube. Like it's good, you know. I have to really
Yeah.
call forth. So I'm
Well, I can't decide what you know. The first time we went 16 minutes on the first question. This time 37 minutes before I asked the first question. That is a world's record, Scott. That's so cool. But it is like um I look up to you and you praise me and I appreciate that. But we're really on equal ground because the bottom line is having fun.
yeah.
So this goes along with splitteracy.
Mm.
What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Ooh, what's faster, speed of light or speed of thought? Wow. 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 Do you think there's like I bet there's like a scientific answer to that. Do you know
Well,
what I mean? I bet
here's the
there
thing.
actually is like someone has can you measure the speed of thought?
Well, there you go. You just asked you win because it's the point of this series is to invent new questions. So, you know, people don't know if we can measure the speed of thought, and they don't
Mhm.
know if I'm being more literal or more
I
metaphorical.
think it's a beautiful
So,
metaphorical question too.
but you put it into the
Very
context.
poetic.
You put it in the context you want. Your hunch or your guess.
My guess is that there are certain neurological firings in the brain that are faster. That I would guess that it's faster than like even though light travels so fast, there are moments where you have a thought that like if you think about when you recall a memory and one detail leads into another, I think if you call that sequential, that's faster. Like so in other words, if it's like, you know, my mind forms the memory and I'm like, okay, right now I'm going to think about my childhood bedroom. I just got the lamp on the bedside table, the bed, the window. If you want to say, for me to think about those things, my mind isn't doing a snapshot, and that's not one thing, but sequential things. That might be faster than light. But I
Guess
think what that question draws out of me on the poetic level is just that we're so obsessed with the material and the physical in our culture, and we're so obsessed with the workings of the things around us that we forget in all our discussions that inside of our skulls is the most complex tool, if you want to call it, or the most complex thing in the universe. There's nothing that we're going to find in outer space that's more mysterious or beautiful than what is in the skull of the people we walk around every day and take for granted and treat like dirt and pay minimum wage. You know what I mean? Like we're these walking miracles. And the nature of thought and the way that thought is working in our heads, there's something just kind of sacred and so beautiful going on every second. So when you compare the movement of light, which is something with me like stirs awe, to thought, I think of like light and thought. These are almost like the forces that, you know, and then there's the movement of time that we're all inside of. So when you get down to these basic elements, this is what I love about your questions.
Really,
it stirs awe and deep emotion in me. I love it.
But see, that's what you did, Scott. All I want is for you to go speed of light or speed of thought. You said speed of thought, but you enhanced it with a deeper. You went off. That's what I want. I want people to go into a deeper level, deep sea diving into the hidden psychic behind it. And so that's because when you eventually kind of hinted, well, the speed of thought could be faster, I would say there's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, Scott, but that one you got right. I mean, literally, I love it. And they go, oh, and sometimes people go, oh, and then sometimes they think I'm just pandering to them and they go, okay. But you see, when you said that, it was like using words like sacred. That was beautiful. Most complex tools in our brain, that's like biomimicry, or that's what we do with words is we invent the word tool and then we go, oh, there's something in us that we can apply to that. So that's look up, you would appreciate this. Marshall's essay, it's in Understanding Media, Narcissism as Narcosis. So the fable goes, the guy looks at the wet water and sees himself and falls in love with himself. He doesn't realize, Marshall says, he's falling in love with a mirror. We fall in love with our tools. And what do? We biomimicry water, and we eventually invent this thing called a mirror. That's what water does. It reflects us. So it's like, why do you need to invent a mirror when you can just go to a puddle of water and look at yourself? Oh, is my hair okay today?
That's what I'm going to do from now on. Before I go to work, I'm going to go outside and just stand over a puddle and comb my hair in my front yard. And
okay, here's the next
everyone
one.
on campus will see me. They can form their own conclusions about what kind of a nervous breakdown I'm having. But I'll tell them that you told me to.
No, it's called a nervous breakthrough. and it's called and you're gonna have one, Scott. It's called a midlife climax.
Oh, geez.
Not crises.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well,
I don't know when you have them. Okay,
after my nervous breakthrough, hopefully I can have a nap before the midlife climax or whatever.
I love you, Scott. This is so fun. This is the epitome of all my interviewing ever. Okay, here's Audre. I'm serious. Audre Lorde is a poet.
Yes.
Here's her line. You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools.
Oh, yeah.
Her colleague, Yvonne Rainer, said, oh, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
Well, okay, so I got to start with Marx when you say that, because that's the most interesting. In other words, this idea that if the worker sees the means of production, everything's going to be fine, rather than understanding that you may seize the means of production, but if the master of the house has something that can make almost infinitely wealthy and powerful what is seized, it's gonna recreate autocratic situations, even if you're calling yourself a communist thing. Now, I haven't read all of Marx. Marx may have foreseen all these criticisms, and I'm not just aware. I mean, that's a very shallow read of what happened there. But so that first part of the question you have there is great, which is saying, like, you can't, if you try to, the tools that are going to be created by a system you hate are going to be inherent. You may need to seize them in order to take apart what the people have done, but if you try to use those tools, and then if you can expose them, maybe there's a difference. So let's say someone with a communist sensibility or a socialist sensibility takes over a country and is going to say, okay, well, these means of mass production, we know what they do, we know how corrupting they are, we have to expose what they do, and we're going to use them for the common good, and it's all going to work out. I don't know. I think that seems a little at a sort of like global scale, just a little naive with what we see goes on in the world, where I think people are very tempted by power and by the massive amount of power. So what tool do I recommend that could be taken over and used for good? Gosh, there's something, I don't know. Is prayer a tool?
Well, that's a good one.
I don't know. To call something a tool is interesting because it's
a tool. Of course it is, and that's
it's an engagement with something. But I think there's a sense where we almost need to back away from these fantasies about the functional. That we're just going to do this, and it's like there has to be some sort of deeper. The problem is not with the tools fundamentally. The problem is with us and what we do when we get them. There are certain things that probably should just be destroyed, though, like all strip malls or something. I was saying that to my wife the other day. I said, if I was given ultimate power for one day, the first thing I would do is just like destroy all the strip malls, because the country was so beautiful. And then they just put these horrible, every single town you drive through. I'll never forget. After high school, I went on this Kerouac-esque road trip with my friend. Right after high school, we hit the road. We're going to find America. And all we did was find, Targets and Taco Bells, It was,
no, that is so heavy because I know I met the woman whose dad invented malls in Detroit. It was the first mall. And he was just an architect going, like saying, hey, why don't we have this kind of parking and this? And it was
what's sad though, as a suburb kids, I still kind of love the mall. It's the strip mall that depresses me. A mall can be a beautiful, weird, almost like evocative space with like a Santa in it, and you know what I mean. Like it can be a watering hole, where the strip mall is built to take your money in discrete locations without any possibility of community, really.
Yeah. And then about 2 days ago, I heard on radio that malls are obsolete now.
Yeah, no malls.
And so it's like, what are they going to turn the malls into? And when my dad was alive, this was 10 years ago. I would go
Running Man with Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, no, I would go.
That's what I think about the mall. It's just like death match.
Yeah. I went back to Michigan once a year to see my parents, and I would go to the mall with my dad in the morning before the mall opened. And it was a place that elders could walk out and not in the snow. It would flip. There's a Tetrad's for
Whoa.
What does a mall become when pressed to an extreme?
A nursing home.
A warm walking area for elders to walk around before they start shopping. It was really beautiful in a way, because
that actually is beautiful. Yeah, it becomes a community space,
a community thing, and all it is like you're actually looking at the stuff, but you're also talking to the people. But that was good. You listened to the question well, because you got most people don't catch the Yvonne Rainer if you expose it. Audre Lorde was probably I think she's a Black lesbian poet, and she was saying you can't dismantle white supremacy by using their tools, but you can. She's just posing an important question about how do we do action. And then Yvonne saying, no, you just expose the tools. Oh, well, we know. How did they normalize lying, through radio and TV and YouTube and TikTok now? They did it. They use it. So they use the tool. Now, having asked that question so often, someone finally goes, well, what about a toy? So now the follow-up question is, Scott, what new toy do you suggest?
What new toy for people's lives? Gosh, I want people to see, and I want this for myself. If I could have this, I don't know if I could change myself this way, because I think I've been shaped by the forces of the society around me. I would love to think of community as a toy. You know,
Yes.
in other words, somehow the idea coming back to me and to the people
Yeah.
around me that just getting together with strangers, doing common
Yeah.
activities, in a sort of looser, more organic way, that's a space of like play
Yeah.
that's important. Because I think that's really what community does is you feel, or that's what play does. Play is so, I think we forget how important play is, right? That
Yeah.
we can get together, we can be creative, we can be loose, we can have fun. You know, and I honestly think like a lot of times when people valorize or look back on the 60s or whatever, you see, yeah, there's political messages and there are advancing things, but it's also just this incredibly creative communal space of fun
Yeah.
where people, so yeah, I think that would be great. And I see community being really difficult for the people around me. I think people are very busy these days. And I think also there's this kind of efficiency and functionality to us that's taken over where if we're going to go do something, we want to know what it's going to achieve and why. We don't just wander into a town square anymore. Oh, what's going on? Oh, this one's doing that. You know, so yeah. So I don't think we see community as a toy anymore. I think
We do. In Venice, California, you exactly defined. I went to the store to fill up the water bottles with those, you put 2 quarters in and you fill it up instead of buying it inside. And there was this homeless guitarist next to the water thing. And I know him for years. And he was recently in a documentary about another homeless artist, musician. And I says, Tommy, man, did you see yourself in Vinny's film? And he goes, no, I heard about it. I says, you are so great in that film. You sound like Steve Vai and Hendrix and everybody. He's like, geez, thanks. And I was being sincere. I know how good he is. And the guy captured it. And we started talking all my cliche, scummy rock and roll Hollywood stories for like 40 minutes with his pal there. And we were just in high heaven. Like, I was like, this is the epitome of life where you can just run into someone like the movie. Have you ever seen Slacker by Richard Linklater?
Sure, yeah, his first film, of course. Yeah.
That is, when we saw that, they go, we do that every day in Venice. And
Waking Life also is like kind of like
Waking Life,
it's like a sequel to Slacker or something.
Waking Life is totally McLuhan, Finnegan's Wake, and blah blah blah. But when you say the word play, that to me is the most important thing. When I ask you what new toy you suggest in regards to community, because you are also a musician and you don't work musician, you play music. You write books, but you don't go, I'm going to go play my book now. You're working like I'm trying to write this book. But when you play music, you're working, but it has this more freeness to it. And it's like you said something really good. We're being recorded. Tom Waits said, the best music doesn't want to be recorded.
Oh.
So see, I would have died if we would have had a video of me with those guys talking for 40 minutes. That would have been the coolest video to put on YouTube because it was so natural. But it would ruin it because, I mean, it wouldn't ruin it. But if someone...
No, but it fundamentally changes it when there's that other gaze. You know what I mean?
Yeah. In the other
even like, and I say one of the main things right now, we're talking on this. I may be looking more at myself that I'm looking at you. And I think that is a fundamental thing, you know? You almost can't help it. You don't want to look stupid. When I tilt my head up a little bit, there's this glare in my glasses, so I'm kind of consciously keeping my head down. All these things, you know what I'm saying? Like, if we're sitting outside, talking, connecting, I'm in an environment, your face is the thing. Yeah, so anyway,
But don't ever do this, which I used to do in every Zoom. Whatever you do, don't flip out on me. Okay, next question, Scott. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Ooh, what do I worry about when I go to bed at night? Oh, so many things. Okay, well, right now, this is, about 3 months from now, June 7th, a little less than 3 months, dear Lord. My wife and I will be having our first child.
Wow.
So this is a big transition point in my life. So this is a less philosophical answer, though I think it probably has philosophical trails attached to it, or however you want to put it. But yeah, being organized as a father, being responsible. I'm a pretty space cadet-y, exist in abstract realms, have trouble following a schedule kind of person, work piling up, organizational kind of things. And then you're going to have a kid. So I feel like I have to undergo some pretty fundamental changes. And I'm putting a lot of faith and hope in the initial existential shock of the kid arriving and me holding this vulnerable being in my arms to kind of like shock my system, into a new mode. But I do go to bed probably and think about a lot. Okay, like, because when I'm going to bed, a lot of times it's like 3:30 in the morning because I've been up reading or like obsessing over sentences, and you can't mess up your kid's childhood because you're so worried about which adjective to use in your short story. You know what I mean? Like you have to kind of find. So I think I would say, I think a lot about balance. How do I find balance between work? And it's all these things where it's like you could not feel more typically middle class and bourgeois as you start to think, oh, I need balance between my work and home spaces and all these, you feel like suddenly you went from this like cosmic voyager to this like, middle class, like college professor dude in 2025 looking for, got to get my taxes done because, the kid's got his play, all these things. But then it comes back to like literally the most primal existential thing, which is like my body created another body. And that body is going to be really messed up if I don't have my act together and act out. I can't just be like, oh, I love you so much. I gotta embody love in my actions and everything. So yeah, I think a lot of, to use a really, really, you're breaking out so many poetic phrases, but I think like rubber hits the road might be the one that I would use in this, in this situation. So yeah, I think I'm afraid what I'm going to learn about myself when I have a kid. Cause I think we like to carry a lot of really lovely, beautiful images of ourselves in our mind. But then when you actually see that reflected in the child, you're like, here we go, and it's going to be a little boy, which is like, boys, men.
Oh, it's going to be a boy?
Yeah.
And what is the age? You're 41 or 42?
41. Yeah.
What's your wife's name again?
Rachel Cochran, the author of The Gulf, a brilliant person.
Rachel is how old?
35 in a couple days. Yeah.
Right. Very cool. Well, congratulations. Two things in that regard, and it was so well articulated. You're concise. I appreciate it.
Oh gosh, I feel like I talked for so long. Thank you, Gerry.
This is two of my favorite things. When I meet a father and the child, or the parent and the child, I go, oh, hi, you're doing a really good job raising your parent. And they look at me and they get it. If they're at that age, they sort of get it. They think it's funny. But one time the dad was a no good Nick, and the kid knew it. And it was the wrong thing to say. I was like, I just didn't. So it was a hit and miss. But the other one is when your first
Gerry, you can't be the person you are in the world with your level of curiosity without pissing someone off a couple times a year, right? You must, just with your curiosity, and it's not your fault. You're doing the right thing, but not everybody.
I know. I do. I let my mouth say things sometimes. I go, whoops, probably shouldn't have said that. But anyways, you live and learn. But here's the other one. You're going to get this. I don't know if they still have them, but you're going to get this like little transistor radio thing in the baby's room. And all it is you can hear when you go to your room, you're going to hear this
baby monitor. Yeah.
Baby monitor. And you're going to hear, just air.
But there's video now. That's all video.
Oh, okay. Video.
Both.
And then
tools have evolved.
At one point, the baby's going to pick it up and go, yo, Dad, bring me an iced tea.
And I'll say Arizona iced tea is the best. So I think it connects a lot with the worry about you shouldn't Bob Dylan and what I'm worried about. Those are the two things. I could talk forever.
No, worry is okay. We'll do one more worry thing because it's connected, but it is the other one is about the joke. The kid, at some point your son's going to go to you, Scott, Dad, are you absolutely sure you won't support me for the rest of my life? No, thank God you can laugh. Most millennial kids, most millennial people go, that's not funny. We were like out of there. Yeah, I mean, you're not a millennial. What are you?
I am what's called a geriatric millennial.
Oh, geriatric. But
Or
anyways,
older, or more the kind. I heard geriatric first. I said that's a little rough. Elder millennial, I think, was the term that came along.
But what you know what I'm getting? Like kids live at home now a lot, and it's not funny, and the parent just puts up with it. But when we were kids, we're like 16, we're out of here. Bye. You know.
No. When I turned 17 or 8, I mean, I was like,
Boom.
I got a lot of bad choices to make, and I can't make them here. You know, off we go. And then I did have to, as a result of those choices, I did have to go back and live at home at various points in my 20s for a little bit to like gather enough capital to go out and make more bad decisions. Yeah. My 30s were better.
Scott, you're a wordsmith and really good at it. What's the fine line different between worry and concern? Let me set it up. When my mom died, at her service, I said, there's a lot of people in this room who worried that Dolores worried too much. And to me, is it really? She was concerned about us. So most people go, well, worry is, unnecessary and concern is good. I don't really think there's that much difference. What do you think between worry and concern?
Okay, hang on. Let me get Merriam-Webster involved. Okay. Worry, verb, to afflict with mental distress or agitation, make anxious. To harass by tearing, biting, or snapping, especially at the throat. Ooh, that's good. Like he worried. Okay. All right. So then concern is, hang on. To be a care, trouble, or distress to. Marked interest or regard, usually arising through a personal time. An uneasy state of blended interest. Ooh, that's beautiful. Concern, an uneasy state of blended interest, uncertainty, and apprehension.
Yeah.
So I think that gets to what I would think of as the differences. And I actually like, sometimes I love when you can go back in etymology and find out some of the roots of the words and older, like I'm sure if you read Shakespeare, worry is used in this sense of like the dog worried the fabric. Because I would say worry does feel more like nails in your skin. It is a little bit more like haptic, like worry overtakes your body. And I think worry is probably the way I think of the two words. Yeah, I think of concern as something that I was actually just talking about with my wife about this today. I would say concern is something where you can see yourself as an individual and the sphere of what your mind is doing, and then you can step back. That's sort of like Buddhist idea of the observer, and you can look at what your mind is doing in the environment around you, and you can say, oh, well, that's a problem. Like a bunch of friends coming together for an intervention for a friend who's an addict. They're all concerned friends, concerned parties. Whereas worry, I feel like, is you don't have your observer. You're just in the mix of your, and so worry for me is more of a spinning, repetitive place. It involves a little less control. So I feel like I get worried a lot. But I think worry is also based a little bit more in a lie that you're gonna figure something out or that some future event is going to happen. I think worry is often connected to a misunderstanding of the way time works, that you can actually know what's going to happen. And so you're feeling, I think a lot of my worry is based in irrational fear. Not that like the thing I'm worried about couldn't happen. Like when I'm talking about like, oh, I'm going to have a kid and what if the kid hates me, or something like that. It's not that it couldn't happen, but there aren't that many indications on the field of it. It's more just my worried about it, where it's like to say, oh, I'm concerned about the type of father I'm going to be. Well, that's thoughtful, that I can do something about. That feels more practical minded, Well,
this is what I say, Scott. I have never had kids, but I say, don't tell your kid, come and do the dishes and help chores. Just do the dishes and they'll see that you're doing them and they'll want to join in. It's like when you start preaching, do this, do that, I'll give you, and it's all about like examples. So if you're not worried and you're playful, you're playing music, that's how the kid will be. That's like, you really evoked back to the beginning, the first McLuhan book, in the first 3-4 paragraphs. In fact, I asked David Byrne of Talking Heads once, I said, dude, you're a McLuhan person. Did you read the introduction to Mechanical Bride, the first book he ever wrote? And he goes,
wait, okay,
no.
this is because sometimes you do these transitions that are so we were talking about my worries, and then you're saying you talked to David Byrne
Once in an art gallery, because I was supposed
about the intro to that's really
but here's the non sequitur. It goes to when you were talking about the world. It was like a whirlpool. So here's the whirlpool. And the funny thing is, I was supposed to ask David Byrne, did you ever read Finnegan's Wake? And I got the answer out of this, and then he was mobbed, and I never got to ask him the question.
Oh no!
But you were talking about a whirlpool, like you're caught in this whirlpool. Well, what Marshall says in those first paragraph is he brings up Edgar Allan Poe's short story called "Descent into the Maelstrom," and it's where a sailor's in a boat. It's in a storm. The boat gets smushed by the storm, and all the broken parts of the boat are swirling around in a whirlpool. And he's going to be swooped down to his death, the descent into the maelstrom. But instead, he watches the pattern of the broken boat parts and uses them to swoop his way out of death. And that's what McLuhan says. We're swirling in information overload. Back to your first question, we're swirling, and we can study the patterns and use our way to survive. They're like, oh my God, advertising so horrible, information overload so horrible. Well, how can we use that to educate people? So he's saying use that swirling, turn your breakdown into a breakthrough. And it really is studying the patterns. So here's
what a haunting image for this moment. It's so interesting you ended on an optimistic point. You're like, how would I describe this moment? Well, we're all swirling in a vortex filled with
vortex is the word.
Headed down into the death of the maelstrom. But if we grab the right fractures, we can fly up and I was like, that's terrifying. Most people won't make it. Most people will die, but the few.
No, but Scott, you did that. You wrote a book and you go, well, I'm going to use my music too. So you studied the patterns, like how can I blend and expand the book into music and then like, oh, I'm just going to be another book and it's going to be on the shelf. And then, boom, my friend wrote a book on blowing balloon hats, and he wanted to create
that's so cool
a coffee table balloon hat book. And they him and his buddy traveled the world and shot some of the most amazing photographs. Eventually the deal they got was how to make balloon hats, and he was really disappointed. And it was a pretty good publisher, you would know him, in San Francisco. And after a couple of years they go, okay dude, we're going to destroy like 4 flats of, what do they call those things they pile books up on,
pallets?
Pallets, like 4 pallets of your book. And he's like, no. And so he rented a storage space and saved them. Like, yeah, you're going to sell
it. They were going to pulp his beautiful.
Oh yeah, because that's, I mean, what are they going to do with your books after a while? You're going to go, oh no, I'll buy them. Don't throw them out. I'll put them in my garage. And then Adi eventually was on Martha Stewart, how to do balloon hats, and he became the balloon hat guy of America. And he eventually put out the coffee table photograph book. It took like 20 or 30 years. So, I mean, he studied the patterns, he stuck with it, but it's sort of like the world you're in of publishing. You got, your website with New York Times and all these great reviews. By the way, there's one typo on your, there's 2 little mistakes on your website. You got the word Finnegan's Wake with a quote. Finnegan's apostrophe. There's no apostrophe in the title. So all the Wakians will go, this guy doesn't know anything. So get rid of that apostrophe. And the link to when I was on the road reading Finnegan's Wake doesn't go to that article. It goes to some other article.
Oh. Well, there you go. But the whole article, it actually is perfect in a way, because the whole article is about how, as I was like, my life was falling apart, and I was in this band, and I thought I could cheer myself up and get to a better headspace by reading Finnegan's Wake, and I bought a bunch of reference books, and I think that I definitely had a nervous breakthrough there with no climax whatsoever. Yeah.
Hey, did you open for Missing Persons?
I did.
And did you meet
Dale
Dale?
Blasio?
Did you meet her?
Well, I will say, if you could call meeting someone them glancing at you for a second while they slam a door in your face, yes. I met Dale Blasio. It was a great. I think she was headed to get like some food from the snack table, and then there I came. I think with a band member or two, ready to ask probably the same stupid question about words she's had to answer. Whatever. Bam, but then they're great. Yeah, that was great. That was
That's
cool.
No, we can.
Missing Persons is like very
someday
wild, cool.
Yeah.
Band. Yeah.
So
it was
someday,
like 2009. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was so after everything, and we were in this club called BB King's, which is in Times Square. It's like this almost like forest bar kind of vibe, where it wasn't like a venue. Everyone would sit at tables. I mean, it was like completely. It could not have been farther away from like the Upper East or Lower East Side ethos out of which they emerged. It was like this other like pack. But I mean, such an honor and so exciting. And like, my guitar died in the middle of I'll never forget, my guitar died in the middle of the concert, and I had to do this whole thing. And I went up to my manager after, and I said, "Oh my gosh, my guitar died." She said, we didn't notice. No one noticed.
Anyways, we'll talk about that sometime. But here's the next question, because we're gonna slowly slipping back into McLuhan. He learned from the poet Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions. So we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. And so, Scott, I asked you the question Marshall probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
I feel like my answer is so basic, which is, I think we love the hidden psychic effects, and I don't think we want to analyze it. I think it feels great to be angry, or at least for certain people. Or I think if you're bored with your life and you feel purposeless and you're working some job that's grinding out your humanity, and that's something I'm grateful for, that all through my 20s I had these kind of really menial jobs. So I kind of like, can still remember what I do. I'm working with students in the classroom, and I'm like in heaven with it. But I remember what it was like to work 40, 45 hours a week for very little money. You could barely pay your bills, and then there's something, you were also being kind of like sapped of your basic humanity. And I think the kind of feeling of righteousness that comes along with anger, and the type of purposefulness that comes along with fear, I think can be addictive if you're very unhappy. And I think you can get hooked on those emotions, and stop caring so much about the truth or untruth behind what's spurring those emotions. You're kind of looking for the next thing to give you that anger hit, because when you feel angry, the world makes sense. You are a vector in the world. Your identity is clarified. You can do things with your anger that make you feel strong and powerful. And I mean, I think to an extent, if you're thinking about like getting protests in the street and trying to, do things, to help it. I'm trying to avoid telling people to go vandalize like Tesla locations.
No,
I'm not gonna do it. I'm not doing it.
Don't turn into
like,
your
that's like, and that's why in my book there's all those eco terrorists, right?
Yeah.
Who are, I don't agree with violence. I think violence is kind of like an evil in and of itself, and that kind of like harsh behavior is an evil in and of itself. But it makes a lot of sense to me why people fall into it. I don't think people who fall into these spaces where they're loving the hidden psychic effects of social media or television or whatever, I don't think they're evil. I think they've found maybe too simplistic an answer to get to an emotional space where they want to. And it's just like drugs. I mean, drugs are the exact same thing. They give you a feeling, they lift you out of, But I think what's interesting is it brings you back to this thought of like the mundane And why have
Yeah.
we created a world where the mundane exists when there is
Yeah.
nothing mundane? Everything around us is mysterious
Unbelievable.
and sacred and beautiful, but we've created a world where there's a distinction between what's exciting and what's mundane, and we feel like we exist in the mundane the whole time, and we force other people into the mundane to get what we want through their underpaid labor. And so it's it's a it's a
Heavy.
lot,
You
a lot
said
to
a lot
unpack.
there. Really said a lot, Scott. It really helped me because it's almost like I want to repeat this back. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects? Because we love to ignore them and not analyze them because it gives our righteousness to our anger and fear. I mean, that was amazing. I never got that. I mean, a lot of people go, well, we don't ignore them. Or why are we ignoring them? Or, they usually go fear, but it is you went a little different there because you went again a step deeper is why did we ever invent the mundane? Why did we invent the idea that you could distinguish between that? So do artists have moral obligation?
Oh yes, I think obvious, but I mean probably first and foremost to their art.
Yeah.
Like if you're an artist, gosh, it's so hard to say. It's so hard to say because I wouldn't distinguish. I wouldn't say, well, here are the artists, and then here are the people who are just making entertainment. Like I think people who are creative and generating things, and a lot of, even if they have a very commercial impulse behind it, I wouldn't say that person can't be an antenna of their race or whatever. But I think you have a sense. You have a sense of what is the truest form. What's the best form that I can bring my art to? You have this inner kind of ethical feeling about your own creativity and where it can go, and when you're failing that, and when you're pushing yourself towards the best version of what you can do. And I think if you're following that that ethos in yourself, that's a moral obligation. I understand, but the other trajectory of your question that I'm sure is equally meant is, do artists have a obligation with their art to try to create something that like puts a certain message out into the world? And I think that goes back into my earlier answer about like, is prayer a tool or something like
Yeah.
that, which is just, I think as human beings, if you're trying to make the word the beautiful, like more in like the platonic sense, like if you're trying to make the best version or the best aesthetic version of what you can create, and you're working your very hardest at that, I think you're going to get to places that are deeply nuanced and deeply human and deeply communicative, and are going to be doing some of that underlying work of changing us for the better. I don't know that art that just comes out with a clear didactic message about this is wrong, you should do this, you should do that. I think particularly at this day and age, it just seems like it preaches to the choir. So yeah, I
That's
guess
good.
I would say there is a moral obligation, but
Yeah.
I think about the fact too that like, Dylan is people still talk about him as like a protest songwriter, but I read the other day, he only wrote those kind of political songs for a year and a half in the 60s. It was like this little blip, and the rest of the time he was just trying to do the best version of what he knew how to do, which in his case is fusing different genres together and seeing what happens, So like Nashville Skyline is a natural evolution from Blonde on Blonde, if you just understand how fascinated he is with genre, and that like genre is really more interesting to him than a political message. But I think a lot of people felt betrayed by him because they're like, oh, you were like helping to like lead this movement and spur all this new consciousness in the world, But I think he was, in his own way, trying to be more ethical in the sense of what he felt he owed to his art, which was, well, people have been writing protest songs forever. I understand what protest songs are. I'm in my early 20s. I grasp that genre. Now let's see what happens when we bring in rock and roll and country and different things. And, anyway, yeah.
No, it's heavy. He's still creating, and I'm happy for him. And really, you touched on back to Dale Bozio and Missing Persons. Have you ever heard her read Frank's manifesto in Joe's Garage, where it ends? What it ends with, music is the best, and it talks about beauty. I mean, I'm going to send it to you. No, it's quite an amazing manifesto of Zappa's, and it really covered kind of these points you made in that last talk. This is another McLuhan line I'm curious your reaction to, Scott.
Mm.
I'm going to tell you what I think it means, and then you tell me what you think it means. Here it goes. Everybody experiences far more than they understand.
Oh, yeah.
Yet it is experience rather than understanding that influences behavior. Now, this is my bias just sort of laying on it first. Your son comes in from the cold. You say, don't touch the stove, they'll burn your hand. That's experience.
Right.
Understanding is saying, son, let me teach you the dynamics of heat. If you put your hands really close to the stove and rub them together, you'll get your hands warm. So I think Marshall's sort of saying that we should have understanding shaping our behavior, but we let experience shape it more. I'm not sure, but I can say the line again, or you can just go off on what you
Give me
think.
the line again, because everyone experiences more than they understand, but
everybody experiences far more than they understand.
yes.
Yet it is experience rather than understanding that influences behavior.
Okay. So everyone experiences far more than they understand. So like, just to think, we're in this space where, the world is coming at me every day. I think the older I get, the more I realize how much I'm missing, how little I understand. Right. But it's experience that rather than understanding that influences behavior. How is the process of trying to extract lessons and meanings from experience, not experience too? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the experience of understand, like when you sit back and you're like, okay, all these things happen. Let me try to draw together. Let me try to make comparisons. Let me try to make some sort of, what human beings have been doing forever. Let me try to take all this experience that's coming at me and create some kind of grid, some sort of framework of understanding it. That seems to me like a very specific type of experience too, and a very shaping type of experience, in and of itself.
Yeah.
So I guess I would agree that experience is always, I don't know that, as we move through time, anything other than experience is ever happening, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But I guess as experience, you mean a sort of like clicked off, sort of just like rushing through events, being shaped by them. I think, yeah, probably. I don't think that it's quite as black and white as that,
Yeah.
but I feel like you could help me in this, in the sense that I feel like I'm defining the terms a little differently than McLuhan is, in the sense of,
No, I don't know. I think
what does he mean by understanding, and what does he mean by experience?
Yeah, I think
Experience.
Yeah, understanding is my interpretation could be all wrong, and I do it all backwards. I give him the quote, and then I say, "Here's what I think. What do you think?" It's like right away I've biased it, but it's like he named his. Well, first of all, T.S. Eliot's a big influence on him too, and he says,
"Oh yeah.
person had the experience but missed the meaning." So it's back to sort of like when you were saying in the antenna.
Is that Dry Salvages?
Say it again.
Dry Salvages? That's from the Four Quartets, right?
It could be. I don't know. I don't have the source, but
it's been a long time.
But it's sort of like when antenna of the race discussion just previously.
Yes.
When we get that anger or fear, a lot of my punk rock friends they're angry, and they just thrive on that anger. Right. And it's like, dude, chill out. And he goes, no, that's my motive. And so that's the more like reactionary. And not, that's more experience than I'm going to step back and understand.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So I don't know, but it is like what most shapes our behavior, back to we shape our tools, then they shape us. So what did Marshall's most known book kind of is Understanding Media? He's saying understanding is what ecology is. It's the organism's relationship with its environment. So that's what when you have a relationship. So when you go, well, Gerry, what do you think of social media? Well, it's what is a human doing in the midst of this whirlpool of information that we're
Right.
looking at and we're being bombarded with, oh my God, Trump did this today. Oh yeah. Oh, what do you think? And then, well, can you ignore that and just live without caring? Now, my friend said, I don't watch the news. That is, you live in the news world. I don't, if you don't, I don't have a cell phone. That goes, that's, I love that. It was like, no, it's stupid. I live in the cell phone world. It's not like I don't live in that world. I don't do Facebook, but it's like I live in a Facebook world.
Right.
So can't ignore understanding what it does. I always love to know the new cutting edge thing, the deep seek, or whatever it is that they put out. I like to know a little about it, but it's not, I haven't,
you're not strapping on your VR headset yet to get into
and I mean, I love, I showed an AI film last week, just as some of it was amazing. And it was beautiful. He took his dad's watercolors and just moved them a little,
Oh, right. Okay. Yes.
And so, I mean,
starting with something, and
again, it's like, I don't want these tools to take your job, dude. But it's like, if we have the brains to invent these tools, can't we integrate new jobs on how to invent better than AI or new, things on AI? So
so that's really helpful. So I think we're having, I think when I'm talking about like my son being born, right, a child being born, holding the child in my arms, when I'm talking about like, that is going to be an experience, and that's going to be, I mean, I think I'm going a little bit away from McLuhan by this, but I think that most, or like when I got divorced, right, I got divorced in my late 20s, and I felt that relationship fall apart, and then I was single, and then I was headed into a new thing. As much as I want my life and everything to be controlled by this contemplative or understanding faculty, whether I like it or not, what's really shaping me are this external physical environment I'm in and the relationships I'm in and all these different things happening to me. And I can nudge it a little bit by saying, okay, I'm going to sit back and try to understand things and do something. But I also think that even when we're having the experience of trying to understand something, we're not even fully grasping that experience. Like,
that is it. That's
our brains are so much more sophisticated than the part of our brain that understands what our brain is doing. You know what I mean? So, I mean, it's the sad truth. Like, you're locked in a system where you can't grasp the whole.
Yeah,
so,
that's
it. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. That was really bad.
The Jewish side of my dad's side.
You're going into the world. You're going into the world of the
some Yiddish wisdom.
You're going into the world of the softness of baby skin, and all you're gonna do is sit there and hold the baby skin and go, wow. And that, do I have to worry about an adjective to describe this? No, you will want to just savor that experience. Right. But you're a word person and a song person, and you're gonna start humming and rocking it, and you're gonna have your understanding mode working a little. Like, what should I do? You're going to read every book on how to raise a kid. You're going to do that.
That's probably the worst thing I could do.
It's like,
I was confused about how to raise you, but now I've got a system. It's like, oh geez, Dad. Now, like, if there's anything that's going to like end that relationship, the system is. Yeah.
But it's like the kid, the great thing I've heard parents say is there's no book on how to raise kids. And, parents of our age, they had Dr. Spock teaching kids. And then a lot of kids were raised in front of Sesame Street. And they said, they'll go, that was horrible. They shouldn't have done that. But, it's no matter what happens, the kids will survive, and they will pull through, and so that's all you can do is, like, I think, is be the best person Scott can be, and then the kid will turn out good.
Yes.
That's it.
I think I've seen so many versions of Scott through the years. I would love to know which one's going to show up for this, but we'll hope it's the best one. We'll do the old Finger cross.
Okay, last question for this session. I hope
Yeah.
let's do the third one after the baby's born. Like
Interesting.
Like
Yes, I
you'll
love
be
that.
able to
Is that
squeeze
okay?
like you'll be able to squeeze it in. You'll be like, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, and the baby could be screaming, and I'll say, I don't
I gotta
know.
change diapers.
You'll say,
Yeah.
what about this and that? I'll go, leave me alone, Gerry. And it's like a little spigot of urine will come and mash me in the, I'm like,
how is
I haven't slept.
how is changing diapers changed your life?
Right.
No, he's gonna be on, Dad, let's do a Zoom, man. Come on. And okay. What are you more afraid of, new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Ooh. Okay. What I want to say is something that I think I believe, but I also just feel like maybe I'm just being clever. But I don't know that I think there are new ideas.
Yeah.
Because I think you can read in Ecclesiastes, right? At the end of Ecclesiastes, it says, "Oh, to the making of books, there is no end." And it's, it's like, and here we then, what is that, 3,000 years ago? So I think we flatter ourselves by thinking that we're coming up with new things all the time. And probably we're coming up with iterations on different things that have been there before. And we're finding new terminologies and new things about it. That being said, you have Freud come in, and then you have like Albert Einstein come in. I mean, there are definitionally new ideas, I guess. But if you zoom out far enough, they're like, okay, well, what are they trying to do? They're trying to understand how the world works, what it means to be a human being, and they're coming up with new answers to those sorts of things. So I feel like every time you ask me a question, I have like 6 different answers. So my first answer is there are no new ideas. My second answer is, gosh, well, like, I guess old ideas in the sense that like genocide, is like, so I think probably I'm more scared of the old ideas. But then there's like new ideas that could be equally frightening. And I feel like the idea that like we're gonna put like brain, like put like microchips in our brains and try to live together by being like 60% mechanical. At that point, that's kind of like an old idea. But I suppose when they figure out how to actually do that, that'll be a new idea. So I am scared about the like roboticizing of the human and things like that. So
Like
I feel like I didn't answer your question at all.
No,
But
you did, Scott. You did.
Great question.
You're like
you? We're wrapping up. I want to know, what are you more afraid of?
I will answer to say, but it's like barcoding your kid or your pet. Your kid runs off, and the security barcodes it, and they go, "Hey, we got your kid here." What? It's a little tattoo. You're like, "No, I wouldn't do that." But and then when we rebelled, we grew our hair long. Oh, wow, you can cut your hair. When the next generation rebelled, they got a tattoo and a pierce on every part of their body. Well, you can laser remove the tattoo and the piercing will heal up. Now they go, sex, whatever you call it, cross, what's the right word? Fluid, sexual.
Oh yeah, gender fluid.
My friends, their kids are doing that, and they're sort of freaked. And that's like they're doing it. At what age do you say to your son, no, you can't have surgery until you're 18? Like, or no, you can't have it till you're 16. Like, then you got to determine, or they want to have their ears pierced or a tattoo. What age do you say, okay, you can't use a cell phone until you're 6? All my friends had them at 5. That's
the thing that freaks me out the most. Like, if my child is gender fluid, I'd be like, great, wonderful. But if they want a cell phone or a smartphone at age like 6, I'll be like, no.
But what about surgery, Scott? Gender fluid. What age would you say they want to have surgery and hormones for gender fluidity?
I don't think I've read enough to have a informed perspective on the surgery part of it.
Yeah, but what age? They're coming to you and go, I want to have it at this age. It's like, well, you're going to have some sort of sense. Well, we're going to wait until you're 12 or 14 or, it's a hard, I mean, and it's
complicated.
It's very complicated.
But also, you want to, I'm just so aware of the ways that like, I would just for 1 second, because I think you're onto something so interesting here. I feel like I grew up in a way that benefited what I would almost call about like baby boomer clarity, because you had like the greatest generation coming out of World War II, and like that was like I think you might be a little younger than my father, but like you have this generation coming out of World War II, and he was raised very strict, and it was the Jewish household. You got to be a doctor, and you got to and it was like, you know, this rigidity. And then you have the boomer generation saying, you know, or a lot of them breaking away from that and saying, no, we're going to break free of that. We don't need all these strictures and rules. And so then I was brought up in a way that was the opposite. It's like, be whatever you want. You don't have to be a doctor. Find your voice, find your thing. And I had a lot of clarity growing up out of that sense of like, I am being raised to be the person that I want to be, but it was not in sharp contradistinction to anything. I was not rebelling against anything. So now I think having a kid myself, there are not the same level of grand narratives to give the kids. Like, we're all here, we're kind of doing our best. Biden didn't work out. You know, like, I like I think you know, there's a feeling of like kind of groping and confusion, and then there's new questions coming up that are so like, you're asking me my answer that it's like, you know, before I even uttered a word about that, I would want to really like meditate on that for a long time.
What year was your dad born about? Do you know?
1951.
51. No, we're exact age. I was born in 50. Right? I was born in 53. So 2 years.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Well, that was good, because I wanted to tell you the source of those two. Because I like when I say, are you more afraid of new ideas or old ideas? People go, I'm not afraid of ideas. And it's like, no, people a lot of time go, I'm afraid of old ideas like genocide and fascism. Like, how did we ever get so brainwashed to be that, oh, no, some wars are needed. Oh, no, you have to have that war. And I love this split, because here's the two guys I got the question from. You might get a kick. John Cage said, I can't understand why people are afraid of new ideas. I'm afraid of the old ones.
And I love that some people say I'm not afraid of any ideas, and my answer is like, wow, I'm so afraid of all the ideas. What do I?
Yeah. and then
I believe in free thought, but I guess I'm in a moment now too where I'm seeing so much happen in the world that I think is so like shocking and upsetting to me, that I'm like, oh gosh, you know, all these things were an idea first, you know.
But you do have two words that resound with me after this clicks off, beauty and prayer. That you can see the beauty in life, and whatever prayer is for you. It doesn't have to be religious. Prayer is just devotion to conversation or writing books or making music. So here's Charles Kettery. People are very open-minded about new things as long as they're exactly like the old ones. You know, so it is how, like you said, how much.
That's so true. That's so true. Like, people are going to love social media as long as it's about conquering other people and pushing fear and demagoguery. And this new thing is so great because it's like the old. But you know what you said before that is true, and I love that you're taking away the prayer, because in our first conversation we did talk a lot about spiritual stuff, and I mean, if I'm trying to get like grand and total about it, I mean, I do believe in God, and I believe in love, and I believe in like that, you know, we're being sought by love, and I think fundamentally have a very positive view of reality. And I think, you know, what's sad for me is how we as human beings lose sight of how much beauty and love surrounds us. And then things like prayer, you know, that allow us access to it, we almost like close off the channels of, you know, what in the spiritual tradition would be called grace, these things that come in and transform you in a way and lead and lift you above, you know, the smaller things. So yeah, you know, thank you for bringing it back there at the end, because I was just having fun riffing off how the world was burning around me, but you know.
But here's you evoked two good ones. Schopenhauer said all truth passes through three stages. First, it's ridiculed. Secondly, it's violently opposed. And then third, it's accepted as being self-evident. I knew that all along. You know, but here's your thing on God. I want to end because I love Harold Bloom's line. Do you believe in God? And he goes, I'm not an atheist. My attitude towards Yahweh is that I don't like him and I don't trust him, and I wish he would go away, but I know he won't because he's built into the language. As Nietzsche said, he's part of the way we think. As soon as you use a verb involving being, you're in trouble. So I just like the idea that things get built into our language and that we're able
Yeah.
to talk about them. We don't have to say, I believe this or I don't believe this. We're just like sussing out a bigger picture of what these things we invented, words, do to us, you know?
Yeah. But I think, God, if God is real, God has to be in the realm of human experience, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So
Yeah.
everything that Harold Bloom just said, I agree with if you think of God as an idea.
Yeah.
But God as an experience is something different. That means that's the capacity to, and that's when I think about what prayer is. Like prayer
Yeah.
is stepping into a space where that sense of love or that sense of what's coming through in terms of the mystery of being is an experiential thing that transcends concept. But that's a conversation for another day. I don't want to keep
Yeah,
you
no, that's good
here,
because the
keep me
mystery of being,
rambling.
yeah, no, the mystery of being is
Yeah.
that it's like
Mhm.
when I ask you next Zoom, what's the function of music? This guy said it's the sound of being alive. That's
Oh,
the mystery. We
who said
don't
that?
know.
That's beautiful.
David Moss, yeah. But it is this like the mystery is that
Ooh, yeah.
how did we meet and how did you have this effect on my life? I'm just grateful for that. I don't know how it happened, but it happened. So thank you so much, Scott.
Well, thank you, Gerry. This has been such a blast. And I love the idea of a conversation a little bit after kid is born, and you can just see my descent into madness. It's wonderful. I love that.
I think it will not be a descent. It will be an ascent into grace
Oh,
and
beautiful. I think so too.
grace and beauty. Yeah.
Yes, I think so too. I think so
All
too.
right.
Well,
Okay.
thank you, Gerry, and
Thank
have a
you,
lovely
Scott.
day. We'll talk soon.
Okay. See ya. I love you. Bye.
Bye bye.